It's been a while since I saw all of Daredevil season 1 and 2 on Netflix, and I think that I really liked it when I first watched it. I really liked the series. I really thought it was one of the best series of all time, seasons 1 and 2. It was just such a great show. It's Daredevil, but it's sort of a superhero show, but he's not really a superhero. He has supernatural powers, but the story is a basically crime story. It's actually a story of a vigilante who uses his supernatural powers, sort of like superpowers, to fight crime. Thing is, it's not really superpowers because he's blind and he can't see at all. But also, whatever causes blindness also causes other senses to be hyper aware. So he can smell things that are just really subtle. He can hear things from like a mile away. He can sense vibrations. They don't really explain 100% what he sees or how he sees it, but basically he can sense he gets a lot more information through his senses than just vision. He can't actually see through his eyes, but his other senses are hyper tuned. So he basically has a superpower where his senses are pretty much better than the normal person's senses, even though he can't see. But he can hear, he can do all the other stuff though. And basically to the point where he doesn't actually even need his vision because his other senses are so acute. And seasons 1 and 2 were fantastic. It started off with him he was basically a vigilante from the beginning, and he decided that he wanted to be a lawyer professionally because he wanted to put people away who committed crime. He wanted to basically bring justice to those who did wrong by other people, but he wanted to do it in a very, very lawful, orderly way. But in addition to that, like at night he would go out, and because he had his superpowers, he put on a suit and he went and fought crime. And the thing about it is that the villains in the series also have superpowers. There's ninjas. There's Fisk, which is also known as Kingpin. Kingpin basically is like a mafia boss he's organized crime, but he's like the organized crime person, like the biggest organized crime person. Like I don't know if it's in the world, but definitely in the city that Daredevil's in. And basically he's bought everybody. Like he basically owns everybody: the police, the investigators, the newspapers, people, the landlords, people that even like criminals. Like he basically controls everything and everybody. He's got his like corruption everywhere. Like you can't go anywhere, like you can't like do anything like wrong to him or whatever. You can't go against him because he comes after like not only like the person that did whatever he didn't want them to do, but also like he threatens their family, and he basically controls people through threats, like giving them money and also threatening their well-being, their lives, and their family and the people they love. So he basically controls everybody that way, and he's like super good at it. Also, he can fight. He's kind of like this big dude, right? But he can also fight. He wears a suit, like looks like a business suit, but it's like got, what do they call it? Like those like bulletproof panels in the business suit. So it's like business suit is like a bulletproof suit. So he can't really. So when he gets into a fight with Daredevil, he can't really be hurt that much. He can't be shot. He can't be punched. He could be shot and punched, but it won't do anything to him because he's got that suit on, where it's got these like Kevlar or whatever panels in it. And so that's kind of cool. Also, there's a lot of other characters in here that are pretty cool. There's ninjas, there's assassins, there are all kinds of really cool villains. There's the guy that taught him martial arts. The guy's name is Stick. Stick is also blind, but also has the same gift of his other senses are super aware. So he doesn't even need his vision be without it and still see and basically detect more than the normal person with normal senses that does have vision, you know. And so the seasons 1 and 2 were really cool. It basically built up the character. He went from just the beginnings when he was a kid, and when he got his powers, like, you know, his dad was killed. So it's sort of like the same thing that happened with Batman. His dad was killed by organized crime or something like that, and then he vowed to fight crime after that point. It's the same thing, and his dad was like a boxer. He became a boxer. He was always into fighting, and it's the same thing that happened to Bruce Wayne in Batman, where his parents were killed by a random mugger, you know, in the middle of an alleyway somewhere in the city, you know, and then he vowed to always like fight crime after that, and that's what I think really the two characters have in common, where they're both vigilantes, and I would say like that they're also both like really good fighters. They're better like martial art fighters than the normal person is. So they can pretty much beat up like any goon or whatever, any like random criminal that they catch doing crime or whatever it is. The only difference is that you know, Batman actually doesn't have any superpowers. He just has a lot of advantages, whereas Daredevil does have superpowers. But the thing is, they're not really superpowers. They're just kind of super senses. But however, even though he has all these super senses, he also doesn't have vision, so he can't actually see. But he kind of doesn't need it anyway. But the thing that's both really cool about them is they can fight really, really well. And this is where, like, this is why he becomes a vigilante, because he can fight really well. He can basically jump, you know, for really, really well, like from building to building, rooftop to rooftop. It's interesting because the way he finds like where a crime is happening is like he goes to a random rooftop and then he can hear the crime happening from like a mile away. He can hear it. Like he just listens for it, and he can hear like somebody screaming or sirens or something going in a certain direction, or a gunshot that like no one else can hear because it's like from a mile away. You know, it's sort of like how a dog can like smell like somebody from like miles away, can pick up their scent and know exactly which way they went. It's sort of like that. He's got these superpowers. So in season 3, which I know it came out a while ago, but I just started watching it recently, now and stuff. Like I watched the first episode of season 3 and I was like hoping that it was good. I did hear things like, oh, that's going to be the last season, they're not going to do any more of those, and you know, I don't know. But honestly, season 1 and 2 were like really supreme. So season 1 and 2 were really good. I highly recommend checking out Daredevil. It's on Netflix. I think it's a Netflix original series, and it's freaking great. It's really, really good. I'd recommend 1 and 2. I'm just beginning to watch season 3. I saw the first episode, and this is kind of what I think about the first episode. Basically, season 1 and 2 left off where he was in a building, the building blew up, and he kind of like was really hurt. And so he was really hurt. He's lying on the floor, on the ground for like hours, and then people find him, somebody finds him, and he asks to be taken to the church where he grew up, where the priests and the nuns in the church would take care of him, you know, and not like, because he can't really be like, you know, they couldn't really, basically he was a vigilante, so they can't like really help him in any kind of real, you know, overt means, because they've got to keep him like his location secret, because he's kind of wanted by the police, because being a vigilante is kind of illegal, you know. And you know, people were like, is he a good guy, is he a bad guy, is he a superhero, is he a villain? You know, they don't know, because they're like, well, you know, he also beats people up, so what does that mean, right? And you know, he thinks he's doing the right thing, and probably is, by beating up criminals and stopping potentially violent crimes from happening. But it's still illegal to be a vigilante or take the law into your own hands or any of that stuff, so they're after him anyway. So the law's after him and stuff like that. So they can't just like, bring him to, anywhere where there's any kind of jurisdiction. And the thing is, the law is also, in the city that he's in, the law is heavily corrupt, and a lot of it is being basically ruled over by Kingpin, who's the main villain of the story. He basically owns a bunch of the law, basically, like, the police departments, all these different organizations. He's got his hand in it. He's got his like hand of corruption in all of these agencies that are supposed to be law and order and stuff like that. So they basically, do whatever he says, because they're afraid for themselves, they're afraid for their families, they're afraid of him basically. So they just do whatever he says, because he's like the kingpin. He is like the boss that everyone's like, yes, okay, whatever you want. So basically they take him to this church where he grew up, and they know him. They knew his father. They knew him when he was a kid. The sisters, the father in the church and everything like that, they help him out. So for a long time, for a few weeks, they're like healing him and recuperating him, trying to get him to walk again. He's really hurt. Like he was in a building there was an explosion in the building, and the building collapsed on him basically. So he's really hurt. But what's interesting is that that's the first time he was really hurt in the whole series. And the rest of the series, he was always on top. But what's interesting about this is he was really hurt by this building collapsing on him. And so he's trying to recuperate. He's trying to get his powers back. He wakes up and his senses are like clogged. They're kind of messed up. He's not able to use his other senses as well. He's got a ringing in his ears. He can't really tell what's going on too much. So he's got to rest for a while. And then he's resting for a while. And then after a while, he's like tries to get up, gets his senses back a little bit, and then like starts to train again, train his fighting skills and stuff like that. And then like his two friends, who's his business partner and the girl that kind of works for his law office, and then she changed it. She started working for a newspaper because she was on a case and she was trying to figure out like where this villain was and whatever. So she was on her own case, and through her own self-interest, she started working for this newspaper because she was able to get a lot of information on people, because she was hunting this villain criminal, whatever, down. So she started working for a newspaper, and the two of them, they like haven't seen him, and they were mad at him also because he finally tells them that he's Daredevil. And they're pissed off because like of the whole ruse, that he didn't tell them he was that he didn't tell them that he was Daredevil, that his whole friendship with them was a lie about who he was and whatever, but it's understandable. Like, you don't want to say, he doesn't want to like tell people, like, by the way, I'm a vigilante like Batman, because think about it, like his friends could be like, okay, that's a little bit too much for me, I think I'll be going, Yeah, he doesn't want to lose his friends. He doesn't want to lose, the people. And he also doesn't want to lose his secret identity. He doesn't want people to know. He doesn't know if he could trust them. He doesn't want people to know that he's Daredevil because, a Fisk, who's, the villain, Kingpin, is after Daredevil, but he doesn't know the secret identity of Daredevil. He just knows them as Daredevil. He doesn't know that he's actually this blind lawyer guy. And because of that, he's able to keep his identity safe, his friends safe, his people that he knows and loves safe, because he knows that the Kingpin can't go after who he doesn't know is associated with him. So he's worried about their safety, and that's also why he didn't say anything. And that's how this kind of thing goes. Somebody who's a masked hero at night wants to keep a secret identity. Everyone does that. Batman does that. Superman does that. Bruce Wayne, Clark Kent, they keep their secret identity for a good reason, is that they don't want to be full-time superhero. They want to be able to take off the mask, take off the suit, and relax and have a normal life, outside of being a superhero, but they also want to fight crime and do justice and, help people and all this stuff that they can do because they have superpowers. Also, he can't go out there and say, I'm going to be, there's just no way for him to to legally go after criminals because, you know, he doesn't follow due process. He just goes out there and beats them up. And so, and in this episode, which is like a first episode of season 3, is he basically gets hurt, and also in the episode, he gets hurt. He gets like kind of trained back to health by the priests and the nuns who all know him and stuff like that. He starts to get a little bit like put together a little bit more. He starts to walk again. He starts to fight again. He tries to, you know, he asks them to bring a boxer in so he can like practice with the boxer. So he kind of like, at first he's doing okay. He's like, you know, he's hitting the guy, and he's like, okay, you know, he's getting it right. And then the boxer like hits him in the ear, and all of a sudden he's like dazed. He can't like sense anything anymore. Like his senses go wild, and now he doesn't know where this boxer is, and the boxer takes them down. And then he, you know, because he realizes shit, you know, because he's still vulnerable. He's still hurt from the accident. And then he goes out and also fights a couple of criminals on the street, and also gets beat up again because he's just not healthy enough. He's not like strong enough from the explosion, from the accident. He got really hurt. He's not strong enough to go out there and, you know, be at his best, you know, fight and at his best. So he's not able to do that. So what I thought about the episode, though, is it really wasn't enough to go on to really tell whether, you know, how the season 3 is going on, because it's still the first episode, and there's a whole bunch of, I mean, there's the rest of the episodes in the series. I did think that a little bit, like, there was a little bit of fighting in the episode, which was like the good part, because that's what you kind of watch it for, the fights and the choreographed fights and all that. You kind of watch the series for that. You watch the series because, you know, also because of the drama, what's going on between the characters. And in this one, you know, his friends think that he's dead because he was in a exploding building. The building fell down. He wasn't found. He wasn't seen after then. And so they figure he's dead, and he's not. He's alive, but he's being like treated for his injuries in this church, and people are like keeping his location and identity secret. They know who he is and everything, but they don't want to tell anyone because they know he'd get arrested. He'd be in trouble, and he's trying to do something good for the city, good for people. However, it is against the law to be a vigilante, as far as I think, right? I think it is, because you can't take the law into your own hands. You have to like go through a due process and whatever. And so he does that because he's a lawyer, and so he goes to this due process, but he also disregards the due process and is also a vigilante and beats people up who commit crimes. So what I liked about this episode was there was a little bit of fighting in it, which is like what was cool about that. But there was very, very little of anything else that was interesting in this episode. And because of that, I really can't tell whether season 3 is going to be good, because I don't know if they wanted to. I think I heard that Netflix didn't want to do a season 4 with this. They did season 1 and 2. Both seasons were perfect. They were so good. I got really into the character. I was never into this character. I was never into the comic book. I was never into, I've never really like read anything about this character before the Netflix series. Like Daredevil, I heard of Daredevil, but Daredevil is not like the most popular superhero, right? Superman, you know, Batman, you know, Daredevil, it's like only people that read comic books know who Daredevil is, right? I mean, they made a lot of Daredevil comic books, but there haven't been any Daredevil movies, no Daredevil books besides comic books. Maybe there's some books, I don't even know. No Daredevil like cartoons or anything like that. Like if you look at superhero cartoons, they're like Justice League or something like that. So there's no Daredevil content that's for the average consumer. It's mostly like comic book fans that know who Daredevil is. So they did a really good job of like seasons 1 and 2. Season 3, I'm hoping it's good, and I'm hoping that like it's not a bad season, because there's not a lot of stuff to watch on Netflix. After you watch a few of their good series, you realize you kind of run out of series on Netflix after a while, because their series are really good. Netflix original series are fantastic. Some of they're just so top notch, they're so good. But then after a while, you kind of run out of options, and after you watch a few, they, you know, you watch the good ones and like the rest of them are like not as good, you know, or you don't like them as much, sort of. You know, with this one, I'm hoping season 3 is good because it's got a lot of content and I'm really looking forward to watching it. But so far, it's just too much story about him recovering without anything else there. It's just him slowly recovering his powers. And, you know, the episode is like almost an hour long. And seriously, like the amount of fighting in there was like 10 minutes, 15 minutes of fighting. And the rest of the episode was him getting hurt from the building, falling off the building, and then taken secretly into this church where he's being helped by the priests and the nuns and the, you know, the that are in the church, and slowly recovering. Also, it's about his friends thinking that he's dead. You know, they don't want to think that he's dead. You know, but basically, like the building blew up. You know, and there was it didn't look like anyone survived, and he wasn't found after that. So, you know, it is possible because he wasn't found that it's inconclusive that he's dead, but they don't know and they think he's probably dead. Then that's what they should accept. But nothing happened. Like there was no sort of like drama, the usual drama between him and his friends. There was a flashback scene with him and the girl that works for his law firm, and they kind of got romantic after a while because there was a little bit of a romance story going on between the two of them and stuff like that. So they had like 5 minutes of him talking to her, which was kind of interesting. But I feel like they put too much time into him just recuperating. They just put too much time into it, and I feel like they should have made the episode more interesting and not like spent like half an hour just talking about how he's slowly recuperating, because it wasn't interesting or action-packed or anything, or drama, full of drama. Is like there wasn't anything about that added to the story or made it exciting or made it interesting to watch or anything like that. So that's kind of the downside. So I kind of like didn't like that too much. I can understand, okay, they're showing that he's recuperating and he's got to heal up in order to like get back to shape so he can become Daredevil again and be a vigilante and fight crime and stuff like that. But there was just like a lot of focus on that, and I didn't think that was really an interesting thing to focus on for more than half the episode. And it would have been nicer if they would have just kind of like summarized that a little bit and went on to Daredevil, you know, him being a vigilante, which is what the series is about. That's what the show is about. Him being a vigilante, the drama, the action, you know, the bad guys, the good guys, what's going on. There was just a lack of anything happening that was interesting, and it was not really interesting to see him recuperate for half an hour of the episode. So I don't know at this point if season 3 is going to be good or not. I'm totally still on board. I want to see another episode. If it's going to be boring again and they're going to go into all this stuff that's not really interesting and not really doing anything to advance the story, that I don't know if I'm going to watch like the 3rd or 4th episode, but I am going to watch more into it because it is interesting. I did like seasons 1 and 2 in the past, and I'm really hoping that season 3 is going to be good. So that's my impression so far. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you're thinking in the comments. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in another video, and have a great day. Later.